The Red Cross opened a long sealed file from 1944 and discovered the unthinkable. One mole on the neck proved that two brothers, separated at Auschwitz, had been living just 3 miles apart for 70 years without ever knowing the other survived. Dr. Simon Weiss, senior archivist at the International Red Cross Archives in Geneva, had spent decades methodically examining sealed World War II documents. Most contained predictable horrors: death certificates, medical records of inhumane experiments, transport manifests listing thousands who would never return. But what he discovered on that rainy Tuesday morning in April 2018 made his blood run cold. His hands began to tremble as he carefully unfolded the yellowed paper, its edges frayed by time. The document appeared ordinary at first glance, nothing to distinguish it from the thousands of others that had passed through his gloved hands over the years. But as his eyes scanned the faded ink, his heartbeat quickened. "This is impossible," he whispered, his voice barely audible in the silent archives room. The paper contained detailed physical descriptions of two Jewish brothers from Prague, Jakob and Elias Rosen, ages 8 and 10, who had been processed at Auschwitz on July 6, 1944. The boys had been separated during selection, one directed right toward the work camp, the other left toward what most assumed was certain death. What shocked Dr. Weiss wasn't just the meticulous record of their separation. It was what he discovered when cross-referencing their names with the Holocaust Survivors Registry. Both brothers were still alive. Even more disturbing, they had been living in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, for over 7 decades without ever knowing the other had survived. Dr. Weiss immediately contacted his superior, Dr. Rothbuch, Margot Bergman, who had supervised the unsealing of these particular archives. She rushed to his workstation, her face growing increasingly pale as she examined the evidence. "This defies everything we know about the separation processes at Auschwitz," she said, her voice unsteady. "The camp was designed specifically to ensure families would never find each other again. The psychological torture was as deliberate as the physical." According to Holocaust historian Dr. Rachel Kleinman of Yad Vashem, such a discovery was unprecedented. The Nazis maintained detailed records, yes, but these were meant to dehumanize, not reunite. The fact that we have documentation of both the separation and proof that both brothers survived, it's extraordinarily rare. In my 30 years studying Holocaust documents, I've never seen anything like this. What made this case even more chilling was the medical notation on the document. Both boys shared an identical birthmark, a small round mole on the left side of the neck just below the ear. This detail would later become the key to confirming their identities. But what happened next would shake the foundations of everything historians thought they knew about Auschwitz. Dr. Weiss contacted the Holocaust Survivors Registry, which confirmed that both men were indeed alive. Jakob was 94, living in an assisted living facility in Borough Park, while Elias, now 92, resided in a nursing home just 3 miles away in Midwood. Neither man had any idea the other was alive. The Red Cross assembled a team of historians, psychologists, and medical professionals to approach the brothers with extreme caution. The psychological impact of such a revelation on two elderly Holocaust survivors could be devastating. Dr. Hannah Levinson, a specialist in trauma psychology with extensive experience working with Holocaust survivors, was selected to lead the team. "We had to consider that these men had spent over 70 years believing their brother had been murdered," Dr. Levinson explained. "The grief had become part of their identity. To suddenly disrupt that narrative risked causing severe psychological trauma." The team first approached Jakob, the elder brother. They found him sitting in a wheelchair by the window of his room, a thin, frail man with sparse white hair and eyes that had witnessed horrors most could never imagine. When Dr. Levinson gently explained why they had come, Jakob's reaction was not what anyone expected. He laughed. It wasn't joy or disbelief. It was a hollow, haunting sound that sent chills down the spines of everyone present. "My brother has been visiting me every night for 70 years, Jakob said, his voice surprisingly steady. "He sits at the foot of my bed and tells me about his day. I know he's dead, but he won't leave me alone." The team exchanged worried glances. Was this dementia? The psychological aftermath of trauma? They proceeded with caution, showing Jakob the original document with the notation about the matching birthmarks. Jakob slowly raised a trembling hand to his neck, touching the small mole below his left ear. "Show me this man you claim is my Elias," he demanded. The team had brought photographs of Elias. When they showed them to Jakob, his reaction was even more disturbing. His face drained of color, and he began to shake uncontrollably. "That's not possible," he whispered. "That's not possible." What Jakob said next would haunt Dr. Levinson for years to come. "That's the man who has been visiting me every night for 70 years." The team was stunned into silence. Dr. Weiss later admitted he felt physically ill at that moment, a cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. Here was a man claiming his supposedly dead brother had been appearing to him nightly for 7 decades, and now they had proof the brother was actually alive, living just 3 miles away. But that wasn't even the most terrifying part of the brother's story. When the team approached Elias at his nursing home the following day, they found him in a similar state, frail, elderly, but with a sharp mind. Before they could explain why they had come, Elias looked directly at Dr. Levinson and said something that made her blood run cold. "You've come about Jakob, haven't you? He's dead, isn't he?" Dr. Levinson, struggling to maintain her professional composure, explained that, on the contrary, they had discovered Jakob was alive. Elias's reaction mirrored his brother's with unsettling precision. "That's not possible," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Jakob visits me every night. He sits at the foot of my bed and tells me about his day. But I know he died at Auschwitz. I saw them take him away." The parallelism was too perfect, too disturbing to be coincidence. Both brothers, separated for over 70 years, had been experiencing identical visitations from each other. Both believed the other was dead, yet somehow maintained a connection that defied rational explanation. Dr. Weiss later confessed that in that moment, he questioned everything he understood about reality. "I'm a historian, a man of facts and documentation," he said. "But this made me wonder if there are connections between people that transcend our understanding of physics, of time, of consciousness itself." The team decided to arrange a meeting between the brothers. The emotional and psychological risks were enormous, but the brothers themselves insisted once they understood the full situation. The reunion was scheduled for the following week at a neutral location, a private room at Mount Sinai Hospital where medical staff would be available if needed. What happened at that reunion would challenge the understanding of everyone present. The brothers were brought into the room from opposite doors at the same time. When they saw each other, both men froze. The silence in the room was absolute. Then, simultaneously, they both said the exact same words. "You're real." Dr. Levinson described what happened next as beyond anything in my professional experience. The brothers didn't cry or embrace as expected. Instead, they began finishing each other's sentences, describing the same dreams, the same nightly visitations, even the same conversations they believed they had been having with each other's ghosts for decades. "Monday night you wore the blue sweater," Jakob said. "And you complained about the fish they served for dinner," Elias continued. "I said it tasted like the Moldau River. And I said, at least the river had been clean before the Germans came." On and on they went, describing with perfect accuracy the actual events of each other's lives over the previous week. Details no one could have possibly known or coached them on. What they had eaten, what they had worn, conversations they had had with staff members. Dr. Martin Cohen, a neurologist present at the reunion, was visibly shaken. "There is no medical explanation for this," he stated later. "These men knew intimate details of each other's daily lives despite having no contact. It goes against everything we understand about how information can be transmitted between individuals." But the most chilling moment came when both brothers simultaneously pulled down the collars of their shirts to reveal identical moles on the left sides of their necks. "They took samples of it," Jakob said. "At the camp," Elias continued. The doctor with the silver glasses. He said we were perfect subjects because we were identical. The team looked at each other in confusion. The original documents had listed the brothers as being 2 years apart in age. Identical twins would have been the same age. Dr. Weiss quickly retrieved the file and examined it more closely. There, in the faded margins, was a notation in different handwriting. Zwillinge? The German word for twins, followed by a question mark. Could the intake officer at Auschwitz have made a mistake about their ages? Or was there something even more sinister at play? Dr. Rebecca Goldstein, a historian specializing in Josef Mengele's twin experiments, was contacted immediately. If these brothers were indeed identical twins, they would have been sent directly to Mengele, she explained. The fact that they were separated suggests either their twinship wasn't recognized or something highly unusual occurred during their processing. The implications were horrifying. Josef Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, was notorious for his cruel experiments on twins at Auschwitz. If Jakob and Elias were twins but somehow escaped his attention, it would have been a nearly miraculous stroke of luck. But there was another, more disturbing possibility. When Dr. Goldstein examined the brothers' medical records from their respective care facilities, she discovered something that defied explanation. Both men had identical surgical scars on the backs of their heads, just at the base of the skull. Neither man had any record of such surgery in their medical histories. This is consistent with the type of experimentation Mengele was rumored to have performed on twins, Dr. Goldstein said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. There were unconfirmed reports of attempts to create psychological connections between twins to see if one could feel what the other experienced. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Are you suggesting," Dr. Weiss finally asked, "that these brothers might have been experimental subjects after all? That what they experienced, these visitations, this knowledge of each other's lives, might be the result of Nazi experimentation?" Dr. Goldstein's response was measured. "I'm suggesting that we don't know the full extent of what happened at Auschwitz. Many records were destroyed. Many experiments went undocumented. What we're seeing here, I have no scientific explanation for it." The brothers, meanwhile, seemed unfazed by the commotion around them. They sat together, hands clasped, occasionally whispering to each other and nodding as if confirming shared memories. When asked how they had survived after separation, their stories diverged for the first time. Jakob had indeed been selected for labor, his slightly larger build making him appear older and stronger than his years. He had survived through a combination of luck, determination, and the protection of an older prisoner who had lost his own son. Elias's story was more troubling. He had initially been sent to the left, toward the gas chambers. But before reaching his destination, a guard had pulled him from the line. "He looked at the mark on my neck," Elias recalled, touching his mole. "Then he took me to a different building with other children. They took measurements, blood samples. Then one day, they simply transferred me to the labor camp. I never understood why." Dr. Goldstein theorized that Elias might have been initially selected for experimentation due to the distinctive birthmark, but then reunited with the general population when his twin could not be located. The Nazis' record-keeping, while extensive, wasn't perfect, she explained, especially as the war progressed and their systems became overwhelmed. After liberation, the brothers had followed separate paths to America, each believing the other dead. By an extraordinary coincidence, or perhaps something more, they had both settled in Brooklyn, living parallel lives just miles apart. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. During subsequent interviews, the brothers revealed that their visitations had not been merely passive observations of each other's lives. There had been moments when each had felt physical sensations experienced by the other. Jakob described feeling a sharp, burning pain in his left arm on the exact day Elias had suffered a heart attack. Elias recounted waking with the taste of blood in his mouth the night Jakob had fallen and bitten through his lip. Dr. Cohen, the neurologist, admitted that such experiences went beyond any known scientific explanation. "We know that identical twins sometimes report unusual connections, sensations, or awareness of each other's experiences," he said, "but nothing like this, nothing so specific and consistent over such a long period of separation." The case quickly attracted attention from researchers in various fields: neuroscience, psychology, paranormal studies, and Holocaust history. Many were skeptical, suggesting the brothers might have somehow known about each other, or that their similar experiences could be explained by their shared trauma and cultural background. But none could explain how both men had independently described identical visitations before they knew the other was alive, or how they knew specific details of each other's daily lives. 3 weeks after their reunion, the story took an even darker turn. Both brothers developed high fevers on the same night. Both became delirious, calling out the same names of people they had known at Auschwitz. Medical tests revealed no clear cause for their symptoms. Then, as suddenly as the fevers had appeared, they vanished. When the brothers awoke, something had changed. The connection they had described, the nightly visitations, the awareness of each other's lives, had disappeared. "He's gone," Jakob told Dr. Levinson, tears streaming down his face. "For the first time in 70 years, I can't feel him anymore." Elias, interviewed separately, said exactly the same thing. DNA tests finally confirmed what many had begun to suspect. The brothers were indeed identical twins, not siblings of different ages as the Auschwitz records had indicated. The age discrepancy was likely a clerical error or a deliberate attempt by their parents to protect one of the boys by making him appear older. The scars at the bases of their skulls remained unexplained. No records of any surgery were ever found. Several neurosurgeons who examined the brothers confirmed the scars were consistent with some type of invasive procedure, but none could specify exactly what had been done. 6 months after their reunion, both brothers died within hours of each other, despite being in different facilities miles apart. Jakob went first, peacefully in his sleep at 3:17 in the morning. Elias followed at 5:22, with no apparent cause of death beyond his advanced age. The nursing staff reported that in his final moments, Elias had smiled and whispered, "He's waiting for me. I can see him again." The case of the Rosen brothers remains one of the most disturbing and unexplained incidents in post-Holocaust research. The Red Cross file that brought them together has been preserved, along with detailed records of their reunion and subsequent interviews. But no conclusive explanation has ever been found for their extraordinary connection. Dr. Weiss, who first discovered their file, has devoted the remainder of his career to searching for similar cases, instances where separated families might have maintained inexplicable connections. So far, he has found none as compelling or well-documented as the Rosen twins. "What troubles me most," Dr. Weiss confessed in his final paper on the subject, "is not just what happened to these brothers. It's the possibility that their case represents only the tip of the iceberg, that the experiments conducted at Auschwitz may have had effects we are only beginning to understand, consequences that have echoed through generations without our knowledge. The mysterious moles that matched, the identical scars, the 70 years of psychic connection all point to something beyond our current understanding of human consciousness. Was it the result of Nazi experimentation, a natural but rare connection between twins? Or something else entirely, a bond formed in the crucible of history's darkest hour, strong enough to transcend physical separation? Perhaps most disturbing of all is the question that continues to haunt those familiar with the case. How many other survivors carried similar secrets to their graves? How many others lived parallel lives, connected in ways they never understood, their stories never discovered? The Red Cross has since expanded its digitization efforts, making more Holocaust-era documents searchable in hopes of reuniting other separated families before it's too late. But the case of Jakob and Elias Rosen stands alone, a haunting reminder of both the horrors humans can inflict upon one another and the mysterious connections that may exist between us, beyond our comprehension. Do you believe there are connections between people that science cannot yet explain? Could the trauma of the Holocaust have awakened or intensified such connections in ways we're only beginning to understand? If this story affected you as deeply as it has affected researchers, historians, and medical professionals, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video to help us uncover other possible cases of inexplicable connections between Holocaust survivors who may still be living separate lives, unaware that their loved ones survived. The time to discover these stories is running out as the last survivors reach their final years. Subscribe to our channel for more true historical mysteries that challenge our understanding of history and human connection.